Okay, let's have a little bit of fun with objects, and we're going to create a kid object. And a kid has certain attributes, certainly more than I've listed, but we're going to start with a private name, which will let their name be a string. And we say it's all caps in our UML diagram because the name will be unchanging. At least we'll assume it's unchanging for our kid object. Kids also have a stomach. They're ruled by that stomach. And we'll look at what a stomach object looks like after the fact. This kid object is going to have a constructor method. It will have the same name, kid. And then we see that there's a couple other public methods that we're going to create. Eat until full, full, and full stomach. All of this is playing with the notion of the kid having a stomach. And we'll see there's a diamond and a line down to stomach. And that diamond represents the has a relationship. A kid has a stomach. The stomach object we can see here has certain attributes: fullness, a full capacity, and a stomach size. Sometimes the stomach size is not the same as the amount that a child can eat before they feel full. So we're going to let that, we're going to have fun with those. And we see we also have an extra method that we're going to create a public method, which is get space left. We can add to this and modify it as we go forward, but this is the starting notion, is that maybe we'd want to know how much space is left, and that's going to help us later when we decide how much we want to eat until we're full, and then maybe, find ways to decide what is the percentage of actual fullness versus whether or not they think they have a full stomach. So below this, we see now an arrow, a triangle pointing upward from teen to stomach. And a teen stomach is a stomach. That's different, where the diamond above has a relationship, and that's aggregation in action. The arrow pointing up is inheritance. The teen stomach is a stomach. It's still a stomach. It's just a special type. And in fact, their notion of being full is far different than a child of a younger age. And so what we'll see here is that a teen stomach is different, and we'll play with what that looks like. But it is a subclass of the superclass stomach. So a teen stomach is still a stomach, and any of the attributes of a stomach still exist within the teen stomach. So let's take a look over in IntelliJ and play with some of that. So we have the home, which is where our kids will eventually live. We've got the kid objects. We've got the stomach class and the teen stomach. So we'll start by creating a stomach, because the teen stomach is going to inherit the properties of the stomach, and the kid has a stomach. So it can't really be fully created until we have the stomach sorted out. So in my diagram, what that means is we're going to start here, and I'm going to add some pieces in, but to begin with, we're going to go ahead and just start with what is listed in the UML diagram. So I'll explain later what we've added in. So first of all, the stomach says we have a fullness, a full capacity, and a stomach size. Okay, and they're all listed as private. And in general, unless there's a compelling reason not to, your instance variables within the object should be private. And so those were all integers. So fullness was one, private int full capacity. You can see IntelliJ is trying very hard to help me out here, and it's trying to create a getter or a setter. I didn't notice what it said. And then finally, what was the last piece? Stomach size. So a stomach size. So this would sort of be what there's actually room for, and then there would be other pieces. So I'm going to create something get space left in a little bit. In fact, I'm just going to put it here so I can remember. Public, and it says to return an integer, and it's not expecting anything. So it's going to be get space left. And you can see that before we even start, it was already trying to help me out by suggesting a name. And I'll show you in a second the great piece about working with in an IDE like IntelliJ. But setting get space left, essentially what that means is I want to return the amount of space left in the stomach. And so if fullness, say, represents current fullness of our stomach, and a full capacity is like amount for stomach to feel full, and and then if we call the stomach size size of actual full stomach. So this would be how much actually fits in the stomach, where full capacity is what they actually feel is full. So get space left is about the stomach size minus the fullness, right? So what we want to essentially create is a variable called space left, and we're going to set that equal to the stomach size minus, in this case, fullness. And for good measure, actually I'm going to go back here, there's nothing ambiguous about that, but it's good practice to just always use, when you're referring back to the instance variables, to always use the this operator, and that's saying this stomach, the instance variables associated with it, and you can see it pulls up my options. I don't have to work very hard. This dot stomach size minus this dot fullness. So that's saying that's all the space that's technically left. And then we're going to return, we're asking for the space left, so we're going to return what we just calculated. Okay, so that's what was asked for, but technically we're going to include the rest. And I'm going to show you a great trick in IntelliJ. If you've never used it before, on a Mac, you type Command N, but you can also right-click. I'm not exactly sure what it is on a PC, but you're going to go to Generate, and you can generate the constructor. And you can decide even what it is that you need for that constructor to work. So do you need the current fullness? I don't. So if I don't include fullness, what that means is I'm going to default to 0. And that's okay for me. I think, when a kid or a stomach is first instantiated, it doesn't start full. So we're going to let that be 0. Do we want to set the full capacity and the stomach size? Maybe those are the few things that we would want to start off with. And so I just selected those, and then boom, IntelliJ creates them for me, which is, pretty fabulous. To create getters and setters, I can do the same. I just hit Command N. You can right click and generate again, and you can say getter and setter. And here you can choose all or some of them, and just say okay. And all of those getters and setters are already set. So the methods, a getter is of course something, and a method that's going to go get a result for us, because as we know, we've set our instance variables to private, and then we have public getters and setters. And what that means is we are allowing someone to get the result from that fullness, and we can set the fullness using the setter method. And we don't have to give them access to all of this, but that's a choice that we can make. So in this case, we'll just let them be. The one that we actually care about in this moment is that we created this one on our own that gets space left. Okay, so how do I create a teen stomach? I've got a stomach, so that is, it inherits all the properties of the stomach. I want this to be a subclass of stomach. And so the way that you do that within IntelliJ is, and so we still have this public class, and it's called teen stomach. That's the file we're in, so we better call it teen stomach. But then we want it to be a subclass of stomach, and the way that we do that is we use extends. and then we say which class it extends. So this is something that extends stomach. Okay, and the way that we're going to do this, so I can go ahead and again right click, generate. I can create this the constructor, and what you'll see is because of the fact that I included this extends, the constructor automatically uses this super keyword, and what it does is that's actually calling, when I use the constructor for teen stomach, it actually calls the constructor of its super class stomach, and it passes it full capacity and stomach size, and that is what we want. Except in this case, maybe we do something different for this one. So we could ask for full capacity. In fact, I'm going to modify full capacity here. And I'm just going to I'm going to only ask my stomach, just to emphasize the difference between what I think a teen is like and what a normal stomach acts like. So normally I would say the stomach, the full capacity and the stomach size are the same. Like I tend to, if my stomach is full, if the food in my stomach is equal to my stomach size, I definitely feel full. Whereas a teen stomach is a little bit different. So I'm going to alternate. I'm going to change that again. And we're going to go like this, but then I'm going to update the teen stomach constructor, and I'm going to say this dot set, I want to set the full capacity. I'm going to set that to stomach size times 2, which is probably about right. I know my teens sometimes can eat double what should fit in them. So I think that's the only thing that's different. Oh, I don't know why there's a string there. Just quickly get rid of it. It shouldn't be there. Okay. So I've got this crazy teen stomach that I haven't tested at all. That's okay. We'll get to it when we create the kid. And then I've got the kid that I have to create. And it has either a stomach or potentially a teen stomach, which is also a stomach. Okay, so now that we've got the stomach set up, we can create our version of a kid. And the kid, as we can look here, has a few different attributes. A string, which is a name, and a stomach of type stomach, which we now have. So we can say private, and we're going to see something interesting here. String name, I'm capitalizing name because it's going to be a final constant. We're never changing the name. And we see it's underlined in red, and so part of us might think, oh no, what have I typed wrong? But I'll show you why that is like that in 1 second. So the next thing that we have is private, and it's of type stomach. This kid has a stomach, and we'll just call it stomach. Okay, so this piece is red because it must be initialized, and by default, this would be initialized to null, and that doesn't work. That's not a great situation for something that's set to be a constant. So I'm going to hit generate again, and I'm going to create a constructor, and I'll show you 2 things. If I just click stomach, oops, it's still red. That's not happy, and that's because I've never initialized the string name in that moment. But as soon as I use the constructor and I say I want both, I actually need to have a name and a stomach, then we're all set. Okay, so that might be enough, but maybe it's not. Like maybe there's more that we want to be holding here, and so I just wanted you to see that will go away. I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to add some details because we have this stomach called teen stomach. So maybe I create something like age, right? And I allow my constructor to read in that age, and that's going to decide whether the stomach is a stomach, a normal stomach, or a teen stomach. I'm going to hit Command N, and I'm going to just read in name and in the age. Okay, so now I've got a constructor that only takes in name and age. I don't know if that's, well, that is what it asked for, so that makes sense. Okay, and then I have a few other public methods to use, but I kind of want to make sure that any of this is working before I move on. So I'm going to go ahead and say if age is greater than 12 and age is less than 20. So that is the magic age of being a teenager. Then this dot stomach equals new teen stomach. And the new teen stomach, if we remember our class, we just need to pass it the stomach size, okay? And in this case, just for kicks, we'll just say our stomachs, we'll just call it teen stomach. We'll just call all of them size, we'll call it 20 for teens. Okay, so there you can see all of that. We've got a teen size is 20. Who knows what is actually true, but there we go. And then otherwise, i.e. it's not a teen stomach, then this dot stomach is a new stomach. And again, if we look at the constructor, it's going to take that stomach size, and we'll say if we're not a teen, then the normal size of a stomach is 10. That seems about right either way. Okay, so now I can actually make use of the kid class if it's working. And we might find that we have errors. That's okay. And so the first thing that we would want to do to try that out is kid, my kid equals new kid. And what does the kid constructor take? It takes a name and an age. Okay, so we're going to pass it a name, their name, and an age. So we'll pass the age of 10. Okay, and we'll just check that this runs without any issues to begin with. And just make sure we don't have any. Okay, so that ran, which is great. And we'll try it when they're 14, still runs. Now, I can't do much yet, but it has created a kid class. Okay, so that's great that ran without any hitches, kind of surprising, generally misses a semicolon or two, happens to all of us. But the first thing that we want to add is a public method, eat until full. Okay, well, what does that even look like? So we're kind of playing with it. It says it returns void. Eat until full. Okay, it doesn't expect any parameters, and it's not returning anything. And we can interpret what that means. Like, does that mean to full capacity until they feel full, or based on their actual full stomach? And if we want to just go until their stomach is technically full, then we can use this get space left, which is their stomach size minus fullness. And so let's go ahead and do that, because so we're going to eat until stomach. In fact, what you should do with something like this is actually create Java comment, and we can say eat until stomach is technically full, which does not imply that they feel full. Just so we're clear for ourselves what that means. And just as a reminder, because a teen stomach is a stomach, even though that's not down here in the UML diagram and it's not, we never recreated it in a teen stomach, because the teen stomach is an extension of a stomach, it's there, okay? So we can access that no matter what, even if they're a teen. Okay, so we want to eat until we're full, and that's eat until the stomach is technically full, which does not imply that they will feel full. They actually feel full. Okay, so essentially what we want to do is set the stomach fullness to whatever it means for it to be full, and in this case, it's set it equal to the stomach size. Okay, so this dot stomach dot set fullness, and we're going to set that equal, so we're going to put a value in here, and the value that we want to put is this dot stomach dot get stomach size. Okay, so that's setting it to its piece, and we don't need a return statement, but I sometimes include them just so I know I'm returning, but I'm not returning anything. Okay, so that's eat until full. The next one is percent full, and we're returning an int, so, oh, I don't want to return an int anyway. I'm going to change that. I'm going to return, just for fun, a string, and I'll show you why. Okay, I'm going to return a string. I'm going to show you why I think I want to do that. So the first thing, so I said I'm going to return a string, and it's called get, or percent full, okay, and I'll describe what I think I'm going to do with it, which is I'm going to return a string representing the percent full, e.g. 50% or 50.0%, whatever that looks like. But I'm technically going to be returning a string, okay? And so I'm going to calculate the percentage, what is the other one called? Percent full stomach. So let's call this the percentage that they feel full, okay? And then I'm going to create another one, and that's the percent full stomach. So I'm just going to copy that, and this is calculate the percentage that stomach actually is full, okay? And then the string representing will be the same. Okay, so what that means is then I need to calculate that, right? So I need to return something like, okay, first of all, I'm going to have a double percent full. It's okay that it has the same name. And it's going to be equal to what? Well, it's going to be 100.0 times the amount that it's currently full. This dot stomach dot, what do I want? I want to get fullness. So that's where it's actually at. And then divide it by, I'll make it smaller so maybe we can see, divided by this dot stomach dot get, what do we say? They feel full. So this is get full capacity. Okay, so that's where that is. And if you're past the number of lines and you want to be able to see it, you can always hit return. Java knows to end at the end of that semicolon. That's where the statement ends. So it's okay to hit return and buy yourself some space. It still operates as 100 times the current fullness divided by the full capacity. Okay, so, and then we're going to return that. But what I want to return is a string, right? So I want to return that percent full plus a percentage. And that's why I wanted to return a string. There's no fancy reason why. Okay, I'm going to copy that for this one because it's almost the same, isn't it? percent full this time, I'm still getting the fullness, but this time I want to be based on if they're actually full. And so in that scenario, I don't want the full, they're like full capacity. I want the stomach size. And that's how full their stomach actually is. And I still want to return that piece there. Okay, so now I have all these weird things that I can play with, my kid can do. And what I can do is just play with that for a second. And I'll look at later how we could have more than one kid and how we work with that with ArrayLists. But for now, what I want to say is, okay, let's output, if you haven't worked in IntelliJ, you can do that with SOUT and then hit tab and you're good to go. So maybe I want to say current stomach, and we'll say plus my kid dot, let's go with percent, let's go with percent full. Okay. Actually, let's go with percent full stomach. So this is like where they're actually at. And then we're going to say, we're going to eat until full. Okay. And we know that in our situation, what that means is eat until full is we're going to set it equal to their stomach size. So they won't necessarily feel full. This is just eat until a technically full stomach. Okay, and then we're going to say, okay, so, first then we have to do it. So if we're going to eat until full, the way that we do that is we let our kid apply that method, eat until full, done. They've done it. They're now theoretically full, but they don't necessarily feel it. Current stomach actual, and then we can return my kid dot percent full stomach, and then we can also say current stomach feels like, oops, I didn't add a plus there. You'll see that little red. It would have yelled at me in a moment anyway. My kid dot percent full. So there's the difference. And so let's just run it and see what semicolons I'm missing. Can run it in either place because I've already run it here. You can see home is the last thing I ran. I can go ahead and click this one. Okay, so this says current stomach 0% full, and then we say eat, or I should say, let's change that wording just so it makes more sense. Current stomach starts at, and we'll run it just so it makes a little bit more sense. Actually, I'm going to do one more thing because I just can't deal with being so bunched up against everything. Okay, so let's take a look. We see stomach starts at 0%. Eat until technically full stomach. Current stomach actual is 100%. Current stomach feels like 50%. Okay, and that makes sense because we set their age as 14. That means they are a teenager and they have a teen stomach. And if we remember what a teen stomach is, we still set the stomach size the same way that we always did, but then we upgrade their full capacity to twice their stomach size. Okay, so let's mess with that a little bit. Let's go back to our home function and change this to 12, right? So that's borderline, they're not a teenager. And in fact, let's just say this kid is we can do this, my kid dot get, do we not have, well, we didn't create any getters for the kid class because I didn't think we needed them. but I wanted a way to get the age back. So no problem. We can say create a getter. I want to be able to get their age. And I want to do something else. I want to create another one. It's going to return Boolean, and it's is teen. Okay, and that's really great because now we can say return, and I could have even created that here. If I wanted to, I can actually decide up here to keep something that's a Boolean, which is teen or not. But I don't need that. I can just create that here, and we can say Boolean is teen. We'll assume they're not, and we'll say if this dot age is greater than 12 and this dot age is less than 20, so that's the range for our teenage, then we're going to say is teen is true. Okay, and then we're just going to return is teen. I don't know why I'm creating this. It just seems like it could be fun. Is teen. Okay, so now we have a way to check if they're a teenager and we can get their age. I mean, we could have checked that in here, but it seems like something that maybe you'd want to know associated with your kid. And in fact, you know, there's also this option of having created another instance variable because that is an attribute of them. They either are or they're not a teenager. And if we wanted to do that, in some ways, maybe that is easier, and I'll tell you why. So we could have kept that is teen right here, and we wouldn't change what we pass the constructor. But if they're in that range, then we would just say this dot is teen is equal to true, and otherwise, you know, it's not. This dot is teen is equal to false. And in that case, we wouldn't need this at all. And in fact, we kind of get it for free, right? Because we can just create the getter, and we would never need a setter for this, but we could create the getter and find out if they're a teen. Okay, same thing, but just a fun other attribute we can add to our kid. You know, you kind of create these things. This kid is my kid dot get, this is where this all started, get age plus years old. If my kid dot is teen, then we're going to say so note they are a teenager. Or maybe not note, maybe warning. That seems more appropriate. Okay, so now we'll run it again. And what do we get? So this kid is 12 years old. Their stomach starts at 0. They eat until a technically full stomach. Their current stomach actual is 100%. Their current stomach feels like 100%. Okay, so if we run it again and we set the age to 17, same thing except different. This kid is 17 years old. No warning, they are a teenager without the R. Sometimes you can miss a letter and it will still run, but you'll have that logic error as I just did. So the stomach starts at 0%. They eat until they're technically full. Their current stomach is 100%, but it feels like 50%. Okay, all of that being said, what if I have more than one kid? I do. Okay, so this is where ArrayLists come into place. And so I already have imported java.util.star. That's just a default. I always do. And so, but this is where we can create an array list. An array list can be of pretty much any type. You can have an array list of integers. You can have an array list of double. You can also have an array list of kids. And so I want a kid array list, and I'm going to call it kids, and I'm going to create a new array list. Perfect. And at the end here, you don't have to fill in the type. It will just default to the most appropriate one. So we're all good there. And the way that I add kids to this array list is I need to, I'm going to copy this for a second, and I'm going to show you what we had before, just so we remember how we started it. In fact, I'm going to leave that just for a second so you can see where we came from. But I want to create a kids array list. This was our starting point before. To create a new kid, we had to send their name and their age, right? So I need to do the same thing, but to add them to this array list, the way that I do it is I say kids.add. And the thing that I want to add is a kid element. And the way that I can do that is I can create a new kid and I pass them their name. Like maybe I've got the old one, and they are 17. My kids will love this, no doubt. I've got another kid, a new kid, and their name is the middle one. And they are 15. I'm laughing only because I think my kids will probably not love this, but way to peg them into just a stereotype. And then I have the little one, and they are 11. Okay, so those are now, I have 3 kids, and if I wanted to do this same thing with all of my kids, so something like this with each kid, then I can. And the way that I do that, if I want to loop through them, if I was going to do this, I would use an enhanced for loop. And we've used enhanced for loops with arrays, but you can also do that with ArrayLists. And the way that works, remember with enhanced for loops, if I had an integer array, I'd type int I in my array, right? Okay, that doesn't work because I don't have an array. But in this case, what we want to do is loop through each kid in the array kids, the array list, sorry, kids. And you can do that, no problem. This is a viable thing to do with ArrayLists. And I'm gonna copy and paste all of this because I essentially want to have the same game with each of these. And I'll have to modify it a little bit to work, but essentially for each kid, I want to outprint a line. I want to say, and this time instead of this kid, because there's more than one kid, I want to say their name. And so I can say kid dot, and immediately you can tell it's a kid object because all of those methods that we wanted to have available to us are right here. And so remember when we created the kid object, I didn't create any of the getters or setters. I created get age, that was it. But I didn't because I didn't know that I'd have a use for it. So, but I can, and I can do Command N or right click and create a getter, IntelliJ, and I want one for get name, okay, because I wanted to use it. So no problem. I go back in there, and I'm going to, I'm right here. What I want to do is get their name. So get name is, and this no longer works because it's that my kid, but I can change that right there and it should work because it worked before, so it should work. Kid.getAge years old. Okay, and then we can say if kid.isTeen, we want to output warning, they are a teenager. Okay, and then we're going to print a blank line, and we're going to say stomach starts at, and my variable is now kid, % full stomach. And then I'm going to just put a new blank line. We'll say eat until technically full, and we're going to make sure that our kid actually does that. Kid.eat until full, no problem. And I'm going to put another blank line. It says current stomach actual, and we can use oops, kid.% full stomach, and to get what it feels like is kid.% full. Okay, so if we did that right, and I'm going to actually put 2 link lines, so we're going to play with that, and we're going to say eat, they're going to say they eat until they have a technically full stomach, just for fun. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and run home again, and we'll see that, whoops, I've missed something. Line 18, oh yeah, I needed a plus there because I added that name before the start of the string. Good. Okay, so loads happening. So it says, we'll go all the way to the top. Old one is 17 years old. Warning, they are a teenager. Their stomach starts at 0%. They eat until they have a technically full stomach. Their current stomach is 100%, but it feels like 50%. Okay? Then the middle one is 15 years old. Warning, they are a teenager. Their stomach starts at 0%. They eat until they have a technically full stomach. Their current stomach is 100% and it feels like 50. The little one is 11. So she's not, there's no warning yet with her. Soon. And her stomach starts at 0%. They eat until they're technically full. And when she's full, her stomach actually feels full. Okay, so that's a crazy version of what we have, but it's one example of using objects. It's an example of aggregation and an example of inheritance. And we've added a whole bunch of different pieces to it. So in the end, this is what we ended up creating. And you'll see it's fleshed out a bit more. We've got a kid. We've got 2 attributes. Both instance variables are set to private. The string name, a stomach, also called stomach, all lowercase. And then within we've got the kid constructor. We've got a few public getters, get name and get age. And we have is teen. It returns Boolean if their age is between 13 and 19, sorry. And then we have a few other public methods that we created. Within stomach, we actually set several getters and setters. We set the constructor, which required 1 integer, and we got we had a few getters, get fullness, get full capacity, get stomach size, all just by default created as they would be. A few setters, set fullness, set full capacity, set stomach size, and we've created our own get space left method. And then for the teen stomach, we created a separate constructor method, teen stomach, and that just modified the full capacity for that very special teen stomach. So that's it for this demo, and we can do more later, but good luck. Happy coding.